The anniversary trip to the Bahamas felt off. Emma, my wife of 15 years, had been unusually distant in the weeks leading up to it. The usual excited chatter about packing, itinerary planning, even choosing the right shade of sunscreen, had been replaced by a chilling silence, punctuated only by terse replies and the constant tapping of her phone. I chalked it up to stress. We'd both been working long hours, juggling kids' activities, and the pressure of maintaining our upper-middle-class lifestyle was starting to wear on us. Or so I thought. The Bahamas, ironically, intensified the feeling of unease. Emma seemed detached. While I marveled at the turquoise water and the pristine beaches, she spent most of the time glued to her phone, her eyes darting nervously whenever I approached. We barely touched. The intimacy that once defined our relationship was replaced by a suffocating emptiness. I tried to bridge the gap, suggesting romantic walks on the beach, candlelit dinners, anything to rekindle the spark, but my efforts were met with perfunctory smiles and fleeting physical contact. It was as if she was going through the motions, her heart and mind a million miles away. The suspicion gnawed at me. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic revelation, it was a slow, agonizing build-up, a creeping dread that solidified with each unanswered question and every furtive glance. But I still clung to the hope that I was wrong, that my fears were the product of a stressed and overactive imagination. On our last day, we were packing to head back to the airport. Emma, typically meticulous, seemed rushed and haphazard in her packing. She tossed clothes into her suitcase with abandon, stuffing it almost to bursting. I noticed she was unusually careful about a small, worn leather satchel she carried. It sat separately, untouched and held close. The flight back was agonizing. Emma didn't speak much, opting instead to stare out the window, her expression unreadable. I felt a deep sense of foreboding, a feeling that something was terribly wrong. We landed late. Tired and emotionally drained, we arrived home to a silent house, the kids already asleep. We went straight to bed, the unspoken tension hanging heavy in the air. I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, the unanswered questions and gnawing suspicions driving me crazy. The next morning, Emma left early for work, supposedly to catch up on emails and paperwork. I decided to take a day off to be with the kids. While they were at school, I decided to clean the guest room, a room we hadn't used in ages, and thus untouched since our return from the Bahamas. A small, almost invisible tear in the lining of Emma's suitcase, hidden under a pile of neatly folded shirts, caught my eye. My heart pounded in my chest. I carefully reached into the tear, my fingers brushing against something soft. I pulled it out, a small, silk scarf, the kind a woman might wear to a special occasion, but one that was undeniably not Emma's. It was vibrant emerald green, with a delicate pattern I'd never seen before. That's when I noticed the faint scent of expensive perfume, a scent that was utterly foreign to our household. I gently unfurled the scarf, and my blood ran cold. Embroidered in a corner, barely visible, was a single initial, J. The panic surged. I carefully searched the suitcase, finding more damning evidence, a small bottle of perfume identical to the one I'd smelled on the scarf, a receipt from a high-end jewelry store, and a crumpled photograph of a smiling Emma and a handsome, dark-haired man who I didn't recognize but whose smile held a familiar, unnerving arrogance. I knew, without a doubt, that Emma had been having an affair. The truth, once denied, was now brutal and undeniable. And that was only the beginning. My entire world felt like it was collapsing in on me. The pain was a physical force, crushing my chest, stealing the air from my lungs. Years of shared memories, of trust, of a life built together, all crumbled to dust. The anger started as a low burn, a simmering resentment, but as I held that scarf and looked at the photograph and the receipt, I felt it flare up into something almost overwhelming. I spent the rest of the day trying to process it. I numbly watched the kids, feeling a deep sadness not just for myself, but for them. Their innocence would be forever tainted by their mother's betrayal. The next few days were a blur of barely concealed anger and quiet misery. I did my best to maintain an outward appearance of normalcy, but inside, the storm raged on. Each night, I'd sit alone, staring at the photographs, the receipts, those undeniable symbols of betrayal. The emerald green scarf became a chilling reminder of the deception. The confrontation happened a week later. Emma came home late, smelling faintly of the same perfume. I was waiting for her, the photograph clutched in my hand. The look in my eyes must have told her everything. Emma, my voice was quiet, controlled, but the ice in it was unmistakable. I need to talk to you. She stood there, frozen, her usual confident facade crumbling. The fight wasn't a screaming, throwing things match, but a brutal, controlled dissection of the truth. It was a verbal war fought with icy precision. I laid out my findings, each piece of evidence a carefully aimed blow. She denied it at first, her eyes darting nervously, her voice shaking. But the truth was etched on her face. The lies tumbled out, weak, pathetic attempts to justify her actions. The man was just a friend, it didn't mean anything, it was a mistake. But her words were hollow, devoid of any conviction. My own rage finally erupted. It wasn't a screaming fit, but a cold, calculated fury. I recounted the years of dedication, the sacrifices we'd both made, the dreams we'd shared, all shattered by her selfishness. I questioned her commitment to the family, her supposed love for me and the kids. How could you? I roared, my voice raw with pain and betrayal. The quiet fury had turned into a volcanic eruption. The words poured out, unfiltered, unrelenting. It was a devastating emotional assault, the culmination of weeks of simmering resentment and crushing disappointment. She cried, not from remorse but from the sheer weight of her guilt, the undeniable truth of her actions exposed. Emma's pleas for forgiveness fell on deaf ears. My heart was irrevocably broken. I couldn't forgive her. I simply couldn't. The aftermath was catastrophic for Emma. The world she had carefully built, the comfortable life she'd taken for granted, imploded. I filed for divorce, and in the ensuing legal battle, she lost everything, the house, the car, even a considerable portion of her savings. More importantly, she lost her children's respect, her reputation in the community, and everything she had worked for. Her affair became the talk of the town, the whispered gossip that followed her like a dark shadow. The J of the embroidered scarf was revealed to be a wealthy businessman, married himself, who had absolutely no intention of leaving his wife. Emma was left with nothing but the crushing weight of her choices and the bitter taste of her own betrayal. My own healing was long and arduous. I focused on my children, providing them with the love and support they desperately needed. It wasn't easy, and the scars of the betrayal would always remain. But as I rebuilt my life, I found a peace that was far more profound than anything I had experienced in my marriage with Emma. The satisfaction wasn't in her downfall, it was in the quiet strength I found within myself, in the ability to rebuild my life and protect my children from the fallout of her destructive actions. The revenge was subtle, quiet, and ultimately, far more devastating than any shouting match or physical altercation could ever be. The emerald green scarf remained a stark reminder, not of her deceit, but of my own resilience. It was a symbol of the life she destroyed, and the life I painstakingly rebuilt, stronger and more purposeful than ever before.